All right. And again, if you ever want to recap something, obviously you can go and take a look at the recording. So I want you to have the fundamentals, strong fundamentals in JavaScript. If you have the strong fundamentals, then you can do what's coming next. You can build the games and all that stuff, right? So far what we have done is we have learned how to define variables. We know how how different data types are, string, numbers, Boolean, null, things like that, right? We also learned the string manipulation methods, right? We look at all those cool methods that you can apply on string to do what you can merge stuff, split stuff, and things like that, right? We also look at some numbers operations and type conversion as well, if you want to convert one type to another, right? Now let's move to something a little bit more complex. Remember, as I said, if you want to define something, define a variable, you can either define a single value like a string, right? Or most of the time, a single value variable won't be sufficient. So you would need to define something more complex. And when I say complex, which means you may have to have more than one value. For example, if you want to define a grocery bag, your shopping list, things like that, right? The appropriate data structure for there is called array. So let me share my screen. All right. Also, CodePen is pretty cool. You probably already noticed it. These are the example that people share. So sometime in your spare time, just look at some of the stuff. It's pretty cool, and you can see how they're done. So I'm gonna create a new pen, and I always do my due diligence by do a couple of things. Because this is a JavaScript, I'm just gonna hide the HTML and CSS. I'm gonna go into settings, set the behavior so I don't auto update, and save it. And then lastly, I would open the console. So if I want to define an array, remember I said array is like your grocery bag. So let's define an array, bag equal to, and it's a simple format actually. You have a square brackets, and between the square brackets, you would put each item. So let's say I have eggs, milk, and let's say beans. Okay, I have 3 items in my bag. So the format is pretty simple. You have a square bracket, and then you can have items inside. When you look at this bag, see, in the physical world, you have a bag. So if you put something in, right, it goes at the bottom. So let's say if I have eggs, you would never put eggs at the bottom, obviously. But let's say if you did, then it would go at the bottom, right? And then if you put some milk on the top and then some beans. I'm really choosing really bad products to put in the bag, but you get the idea, right? So think of the left side as the bottom of the bag, which is close to the equal sign. And then the right side is the top of the bag, right? Why is this important? It's important for a couple of reasons. If you think of the memory management in a computer, which I'm not going to bore you with, but the way it works is, think of this way. Remember I said, when you hold a variable inside, when you say, let's say x, let x equal to 1, right? And if I do console log X, what happens is that console log calls this variable X. X is not a value. Think of it as a locker. So in your computer memory, when I do let X equal to 1, it stores this 1 in some memory location. And then it gets a key, which is X, right? And when I call console log X, it uses a key to grab the value and then substitute here. And then this is how I can, when I run this, right, it will print 1 here. Okay. What happens when I store a bag with multiple items? So the way it works, it holds the location of the very first item, which is eggs here in this case. Okay. So when you do when you just define this, then this gives you an access to the bag. Then if I want to get the first item, then I can say, give me the 0th item. So that location is just a reference holding, which means it has further lockers, right? So this is locker 1, locker 2, locker 3 in a way. So once I know the location of the bag, then I can say, okay, give me the first item from the bag, give me the second item from the bag, and give me the third item from the bag. Okay, so this is how it works. And that's why I'm saying that this is the bottom of the bag. So if I put first item, it always goes to the bottom. And we'll see that how it works. Okay. Let's talk about indexing. Indexes is pretty important. What is indexing? So if you have a queue, right? Think of this as a queue as well. If I have a queue, then people are standing in a queue, right? Then this guy would be the first guy standing in the queue in a way, right? But in programming, there is no, if you turn, it would start with 0 for various reasons, okay? So instead of first, you'll start with 0, and this guy would be the first index, and this guy would be the third index. So if I want to grab the value of eggs, then I would say, give me the 0th index. Let me just console log this. So what I would do is I would say bag, and then within the square bracket, I would put 0, which means give me the 0th index. So what it does, it say, okay, where's the bag located? And so it gives me the bag. The bag has a bunch of items, so it has further divisions, right? And it says, okay, 0th item, which means the first item here. Okay, so this is how it works. So if I now run this one, I would get eggs. If I say 1 here, then I would get milk, right? And then if I say 2, it will give me, sorry, this will be 2, not 3. If I say 2, it give me 8. So what is the length of the array? The length of the array in here is 3, right? You can see 1 item, 2 item, 3 item. But the index is, because it starts from 0, the last index is always less than 1 length, right? So this is length minus 1. Make sense? So it's 3 minus 1, which is 2. Okay. So this is this is the structure of an array. And it's important to remember the indexes, because you're going to grab values via index. You can set the value via index. You can remove value via index and all that stuff. Okay, so let's do a few operations, then I'll give you a chance to code some. So one of the operations you want to do is, I want to push a new value inside this array, this bag, right? So let's say I want to do bag dot push. and then I want to push, let's say, some toilet paper. I'm going to call it TP. Okay. So when I do this, remember, if you think of this bag, this is at the bottom, right? And then you have milk on the top and then beans. So if I push something on, it always goes on the top, which means the next item is going to be the TP here. And if I want to know if it's true, then I would say console log bag, and then it would show me what it pushed. Okay, so now the TP is at the top. So I want everybody to try this out. Create bag with a few items. You can push a new item in the bag, and then console it. And if you want to grab each item, you can also do this, right? As I said, you can say I want to get the 0th item. Okay, and that would give you eggs. So let's try it out. It's all about coding. So yeah, open the code pen and yeah, do this. And if you have any question, let me know. I'll give you maybe, let's say, 3 minutes. And also, if you want to have a little bit more context around it, I always would say full array. Full array. Or instead of array, I can say bag. Bag is bag. First element, right? Which is bag 0. If I want to have a length of the bag, length of the bag would be bag dot length. Okay. So now if I run this, well, I have to clean it first and before running it. So if I run this, I would get all 3 items, and you can see the context, so you know exactly what it is. So you have a bag, and then all the items in the bag. You have a first element, which is eggs, and you have a length, which is 4. Okay, so when you console log, if you have multiple consoles, you want to make sure that you put some sort of context with each console, so you know exactly which one is which. Okay. All right, so now that we know how to push this, how to remove, it's pretty simple. The keyword is called pop. So if I simply say bag.pop, I don't have to say, what am I popping, right? Because when I say pop, it actually removes the first item from the top. Remember that the top it's right here. So we added a toilet paper on the top, right? So if I say pop, it will remove that from it. And so you'll get the original array, right? So this one, I would say after, well, I'd say before pop. right? And if I print after the pop, I would know what exactly is inside that, right? So if I run this again, here I would see that 4th item added. Here I would see only 3, right? So before pop, I have 4 items. And then after pop, I have 3 items, right? So if you want to add something, you push, but you have to provide the item. If you want to remove something, you don't have to provide the item. You just say pop, which means removes the first item. Okay. It's pretty simple. What if I want to replace something? So let's comment this out. I want to replace something. I want to replace eggs with, let's say, something. So the syntax is, I know if I want to get eggs, I need to do this: bag, square bracket 0. This gives me the eggs. All I have to do is equal to, and the new item. It's if I'm adding pen to this, replacing eggs with pen, right? And let's say, if I just console log this, then you would see the eggs are replaced with pen. Okay, so we added something, we removed something, and then we replace something. If I want to add, so far we've been doing from the top of the bag, but unlike physical world, in JavaScript you have to provide a mechanism so you can remove something from the bottom as well, right? Somehow. So if I had to go in the bag and remove the X, it will be difficult. But in JavaScript, obviously it's easy. So there are 2 operations which allows you to do that. And the operation is, I think it's unshift. Let's just try bag dot unshift. I think it's one of them, shift or unshift. I don't know, but let's just check. Okay, so I'm gonna go here and then see if it really works. I think it was one of the shift or unshift. I always get confused. Okay, it's not. It's a shift. A shift. Okay, so shift removes item. Remove from the bottom of the bag, right? Why it's called shift? I'll tell you why. If you're standing in a line at the movie theater, so let's say you're standing in the line of movie theater. Eggs is the first guy standing, and then the milk and beans, right? Now, if that first guy leaves, the milk has to take eggs place, beans has to take milk space, so everybody else would move one step further, right? And that's why it's called shift. So if you want to remember, what happens when you remove something from the bottom of the bag, the word is shift because you're shifting everything, right? That's not the case when you pull something out from the top of the bag. Nothing gets shifted. But if you pull it out from the bottom of the bag, things would shuffle, right? Pretty much everything would shuffle. So that's why shift. And then if I want to add something to the bottom of the bag, it's called unshift, which is completely opposite. But then you have to provide what you're adding, right? So let's say I'm adding a phone in the bag, right? So if I again console log here, let's just see what happens. So here I would see the first item gone, and here I would see the new item added, right? So The first item gone from here and then phone added. So let's try this out. And that's all about adding and removing items from an array. There are a couple of things that are there, but we'll learn it later. This is sufficient to learn how to modify, basically, how to modify an array, right? Push to add. So when you think about it, you think about it like natural adding something. You're pushing something in the bag, you're popping something from the bag, you're shifting by removing something from the bottom, you're unshifting by adding something at the bottom. Although if you really add something, everything gets shifted as well. So that's why I always get confused. Am I shifting by removing it, or am I shifting by adding it? So let's try this out. I'll give you a few minutes to try this. Okay, anyone remembers, what if I want to merge this, all of these items? So let's say if I have 3 characters, right? And the resulting, I want to get something like this. The resulting string is supposed to be 1. Anyone remember how to do this? We learned something last week. We learned a couple of array operation. You guys remember how to do this? So I would take this bag and I want to create a string like this from this, by calling a function.
Was it split?
A join.
Oh, I see. To merge. I see.
Yeah, join. Yeah, so to merge it, right? All I have to do is console log, let's say bag dot join, and here I'm not going to provide any space because I don't want to put anything in between when I join, right? So I'm just going to put empty string, right? And then if I run this, I would get one. Remember, last time we took a string, we split it, so it was converting from string to an array. If I want to convert array back to string by joining stuff, I have to operate on an array. So split is a string method. Join is an array method. And if you want to know more about array methods, remember last time, you can do console.dir, console.dir, and then I would just do array with capital A. So this gives me, remember, if you do string with capital S, if I do Boolean with capital B and things like that, it would give me the it would show me all the methods that is associated with it, right? And for that, I don't have to go in this console. I would open the browser console. If you're on Chrome, you can right click on it. And then I would go here in the console. And you would see this array and expand it. Okay, and then here you would see the prototype, and this is where all the methods are available that are for array, right? So let's look at some of them. There's a fill, filter, and some of those we'll look at a little bit later. But let's look at something. Join, we just looked at it, right? We looked at pop, we looked at push, we looked at the shift. We also looked at unshift, right? Let's look at a couple of other, like reverse. And let's look at index of. And okay, let's look at reverse and index of. Okay, and there's some cool ones as well if you want to know more. So let's look at index of. So if I want to find if it's similar to what we did for strings, right? If I want to find something inside a string, then I can say index of, and then I'll pass it and find the first occurrence of that that character. Similarly, if I want to find something, console log, I would say bag dot index of, and then I would, let's say, put n here, right? So it will find where the n is located. In this case, it's 0 and first index, right? If I run this, I would find 1, right? And if I say x, which doesn't exist, do you know what it would give you? Anyone? It should be similar to what we were looking for in string. If you try to find something that doesn't exist, what should it give you? The hint is it's supposed to give you a number, right? Because the index. Yes, it gives you -1, right? Because -1 is not a valid index, so you can easily differentiate between if I found something or that item is not available, right? So if I run this, it would give me -1, right? Reverse is pretty simple. It will just reverse the array. That's it. So E become first element and then O, right? Right? So reverse is pretty useful function. Index of when you want to find something inside. And lastly, we will look at something called sort. There's more to sort, but we're just gonna briefly look at sort. So what is sort? Sort means sorting of an array. Um, and it does alphabetical sorting, right? And usually by default, it's A supposed to be first before B and C and so forth, right? So if I sort this, I should expect E to be first, right? N and then O, right? So let's look at it. Okay. So this is sort. So the arrays are pretty cool. If you know this much, you can manage a lot of things within array. And then there are so many other things that we're going to learn later on. Some complex stuff, some interesting array operation that you can use on arrays to filter and things like that. So I would suggest let's do something. Let's create an array and sort it. And this time, I want you to use, bunch of names and stuff like that, and figure out how to do reverse sort. Okay, use Google to do reverse sort as well. So reverse sort means sort the, this will give you ascending order, give me descending order, right? So let's figure out how to do reverse sort. For that, you can just use Google. And if you find a solution, just put it in the chat. And those who are finding solutions, still looking for it, don't look at the chat. The objective is to, find yourself, because 90% of the time, when you coding, you would have to find solutions on Google, because I don't think, even I don't remember everything, right? So if you understand how to use Google properly for code, searching coding solutions, right? What you need to understand is there are some sites that are better than some other sites. So more you search and more you use those stuff, you realize when you search, you can instantly identify based on certain site, oh, this would give me better solution than this one. So you always go there, right? So you save a lot of time by doing it. So get used to it, searching for solutions on Google. And always ask if you have any questions. There are no such thing as dumb questions, right? If you're stuck, if you don't understand something, please ask. Okay, anyone anyone got the solution? Yeah. So what we're looking for is the reverse of this kind of sort. So where O would be the first, N would be second, and so it will be O-N-E. If I add another one here, let's say Z in between here, for example, then it should be Z-O-N-E in that order, right? And the hint is obviously if you just Google, search on Google, say how to sort array in descending order in JavaScript, that will be the solution.
I think I've figured it out, but in too many steps. So there's probably a better answer.
Can you put it in the chat? That's very smart. That's pretty good. See, it's all
But
about,
that's not the answer.
it's all about, it's all about, you know, doing things, right? And if you get stuck, this is a perfectly good solution. This is a perfectly good solution. You utilize two different things, right? And so that's how you want to think when you get stuck. What's available to me, right? Yeah, sort a reverse is one way, and there's another way as well. But I would suggest just follow this way. So if I were to Google on it, let me show you what would be the better way to do it. So if I just open another tab and then just say JavaScript sort descending order, that's it. Okay, sorting string in descending order. I have it here, and they would provide pretty much the same solution. This is the this is a solution that, you know, that a lot of people have provided. And then this is another solution. You can see there are three solutions, and you can see the answer. So Stack Overflow it's pretty good. And you want to look at, this is the question, right? And this is the solution. And a lot of people liked it. 111 people liked it, which means it has some value to it, right? This guy provided the first one where you sort and reverse, like what you did. Then this is another solution, right? And then this is another solution. But for you guys, I would say just stick to this one. It's pretty simple. This one, you know, it's a little complex, and this one, don't worry about it. So just stick with this one, right? And then there are some people who would provide some weird one as well. But yeah. Okay, so that's great. Yeah, everybody just try it out. I think it should be pretty simple. So sorting sorts in a ascending order, which means A is first and then B would be second, right? And if you reverse it, it obviously switch the whole thing in a descending order. All right, so that's it. Okay, so we learned about how to add, how to remove, how to insert, how to replace, how to sort, how to merge. Okay, again, there are lots of things. Check it out. If you're curious, go to the inspect and see all the different kind of values and then see how all of these work, right? It's really fun to figure it out and you can Google them. So more strong you are at arrays, you would feel so comfortable manipulating them, right? Because if you build any game, you will require to use some sort of arrays, some sort of array, and then you have to do manipulation, right? Where you insert something or remove something. So this would be definitely helpful. Okay, so that's pretty much about manipulation of the array. Now the next thing we're going to learn is how to read through array. Let's say if I have 100 items here, and I wanna print one by one. How do I do that? So one simple way is you would say for. Remember a for loop that we built? Here you have value, right? So you would say let value of bag. It's a little different syntax than the other one, because if you have, let's say if I want to print between 0 to 100, I would say where do I begin, where do I end, how many steps do I take, and all that stuff, right? In this case, I don't need to worry about that. I would say print every value of bag. That's what it means, and give me that inside the value. So if I just do print, well, it's going to print value one by one. What happened? What did I say? Print. Okay, somehow when I click on R, it prints. All right, so I have to. Sometimes it happens. It's weird. So I'm just gonna refresh it, reload it, and then run it again. It's kind of weird that it prints the page, even though I'm just asking it to run it. Okay, let's see here. And then let's run this. What the heck? This is really strange. All right, you know what? I'm going to eject it out and try again. Something that I did that set that up. I have no idea why. So if I think, oh, I said print value, my bad. That's why. It's like, why is it doing it? It's supposed to be console log. I do a lot of Python as well. That's where it's a print. I should be JavaScript is console log. This is what happens when you learn multiple language and teach multiple languages. I teach Python to a bunch of high school students. I teach JavaScript here, and then I also teach Java and a couple of other programming languages, and then they're all different. So sometimes by habit, I'll just use one syntax in another different. So now I can see, right? So I was doing print, that's why. But anyway, you can see the values are being printed here, right? So one by one. What if I want to print the index as well, right? I wanna print 0, 1, 2, 3. So values and index together. I'll give you a few minutes to figure that out. Again, try Google. So what I want you to do is in the somehow value and index, right? So this would be something like this. When it prints, it will be O, 0, O and 0. It will print like this, and then it would print N and 1 and so on and so forth, right? So figure out how to print value and index together. And Google is your friend. Let's figure it out. I want you to try finding solution yourself, because again, you're going to be doing a lot of these. And the first one who comes up with it, just put it in a chat. And again, people don't look at the chat until you're ready to put. So this way you're motivated to find your own solution. All right, anyone? I think there are multiple solutions out there. So I want you to, doesn't matter which one you try, just think about the solution that makes sense to you. If you don't understand something, then just leave it. If something makes sense, say, hey, it makes sense, this is how it works, use that solution, right? All right, give you a few more minutes and then we'll look at the solution. I want everybody to try, make sure that you understand what's going on. All right, so looks like nobody came up with a solution. So let's look at together. So if I go back to Google, and what I'm looking for is, so you have to understand how to state your question. So usually I start with JavaScript, right? So I would say, JavaScript, because you can have the same solution in multiple languages. So I would say JavaScript, and I would say, iterate an array with index and value, you see? All right, and the first one I got is for each. So let's look at this one. Okay, so we haven't learned the callback functions, but this is the one solution that uses something called callback function. Okay, what I wanted to do is, let's not use this, let's use this. Okay, so Mika was trying each letter. So okay, so if you can try one by one, yes. But if I want to do loop, right? There are multiple solutions. So let's look at. So this is the for each solution. What I'm looking for is for off solution. This is the solution. Okay, so let's look at it. Where did mine? Okay, here. So I'm just going to print this here. And this is I is an index. And then val is a value. Okay. So instead of my array, I would use a bag. Okay. And then I don't want this one. I would just simply do value and index. That's it. And I'll explain to you what it is. So this is one solution. Let me comment this out. If I run this, as you can see, it gives me O0, N1, Z2, and E3, right? That's what I want. So remember in the val of bag, which was previous, which only gives you val, right? Which means value of each item. But if I want the arrays, if I want the index also, then I would, well, instead of const, you can do let for now. That's fine. I'll explain const a little bit. We learn about const, but const in context of objects, it's a little different. So you would say, okay, I want both of them, but you can't simply get it from bag. You have to use this bag.entries, and then it will give you this index. So remember this syntax if you ever want both of them together, right? Another way to do it, which is much simpler, remember we learned about for loop, regular for loop. And the regular for loop was let I, remember, it starts with 0 because index always start with 0, right? So I know I want to start here, I want to end here. So where do I want to end? Length -1. Remember, the last one is length -1, right? So I would say I is less than equal to bag dot length -1, and I is equal to I plus 1. So I'm incrementing I every time, right? So now this I is index. So if I console log simply I, it's index. Let me comment this out so it doesn't interfere. I would get 0, 1, 2, 3, right? But if I want to get the value, which is this, all I have to do is take bag and then pass the index in it. So it will give me index and then the value as well. Again, more practice you do, more you get used to it. Initially, we're like, oh, how do we know this and that, right? It's all about practice. I didn't know the first time I learned JavaScript. It took me a while to figure out. Once you figure it out, you remember how you did it rather than the exact syntax, right? You already know that the for loop, how for loop works, right? You start somewhere, you know what the end would be and how many step you want to take, right? For each to print here, I'm just taking one step at a time, and this is how it works. If you're a pro, you can just use this syntax. It's also pretty simple. So you can use either. And I think there are 5 or 6 different indexes for this, but not to confuse you, just this two is pretty common. I would suggest that just try this out. So that's about it for the array. I think we pretty much cover all of this, right? How to modify the array, how to read element 1 by 1 from the array, right? And that's pretty much you need to know. But in life, arrays are pretty simple still, right? if I say, you know, I want to store tomatoes, potatoes, pen, camera, whatever, right? So, but they're individual items. But in real life, you may want to say, I want 5 potatoes, you know, 6 tomatoes, 2 cartons of milk, and so on and so forth, right? So how do we support that information inside here? So for that, there is something different data structure we need to use. It's called JavaScript objects. So this is called array, and the other one is called JavaScript objects. So let's look at that, and they're pretty simple as well. So remember, if I want to build a bag again, and instead of having simple values, I want to have quantities as well. In that case, I would use a curly bracket, not a square bracket. Okay. And then I would want to use the key and a value. So key would be, let's say, eggs, right? And the value would be the count, right? So I can say, hey, I want a bag with eggs, 2 eggs, right? Sorry, my bad. This key and a value. And then I can have another key and another value. So I can have pen. I have 2 pens. I'd say 5 pen here. And I have TP. I would say I want dozen TP, right? So this is how I can represent the more complex objects, right? You're going to be using this a lot as well. You can put quotes around it or no quotes, that's fine. But the left side always is a string, but the right side can be anything. It could be a string, number, you know, Boolean, whatnot. Also, another important thing to remember here is that because it's a list of items, the key should not be repeating. So I cannot again say eggs 12, right? Because I already mentioned it here. If I want to have another 12, I would just include and make it 14 here, right? So this is uniqueness of object compared to arrays. Arrays can have the same value over and over. The objects don't. Objects always have unique value. So this is called key and value pair. So again, you can differentiate between them by looking at the curly bracket versus square bracket in arrays. Okay, so how do I then add something to it, right? Remember, in array you push something. Now there's no beginning and the end. This bag is completely different format. It doesn't have that. I can do this at the bottom or this. It's not that. It's just a one bag. You can access anything from anywhere. So if I want to add something, I will simply use the key. This is where I use square bracket again to add something. So I would say, let's add another value to it. Let's call this eggs. I'm usually kind of clueless when I cream or something. I don't know. Let's add some cream to the bag, and I want the 4 creams, right? And if I console log it, bag, I will have some cream inside there. As you can see here. right? So the interesting thing, as I said, two things: unique values. That's why I can do this, right? Because of unique values. If it was an array, I would do something like this, right? Bag 0 equal to 4 or something like that, right? So the index is the key here. Arrays also has a unique index. Remember, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. They are unique index, which means 0th index is always the first value, right? But you don't manually define it; it's automatically set, right? Here you're manually defining it because it's an arbitrary key, right? It's not serialized like one in the array. So that's the main difference. But otherwise, it's the same thing in a way, right? You have key and a value. And then the key is nothing but predefined item that you're looking for, right? So this is how you add new value. It's if I want to update x from 2 to 3, right? Then I would say, let's say, update bag eggs equal to 3, right? Or I can even say this: take the existing value plus 1, which means 2 plus 1, right? Which makes more sense. This is how you update it.
Sorry, so you wouldn't change it up in the first variable?
Say it again.
So you wouldn't change the value up in the first variable, like up there? If you want to change something, why don't you change it?
Yeah. So this is the variable I'm using, right? This is the variable bag.
Yeah.
So I am changing in using the variable. I'm just saying, use the bag, and then item will be the cream, and then add this, which adds the in the bag, right? If I want to update something, I'd say in the bag, update eggs to have one more egg.
Yeah, but my question is, why would you do that if you can change it up there in the first one you did?
Oh, like this?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, but in programmatically, you always have initial bag, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. And then after that, you have to programmatically change it, right? You're not gonna go like this, right? You have to programmatic. So this is doing the same thing, right? And that's how it works. Yeah. And you can also have an empty bag. If I just remove everything, it's an empty bag, right? Usually you would start with an empty bag. You won't have anything inside, and then you keep adding it, removing it, right? So you need a method to remove it. So what if I want to delete something or remove something, right? So I would simply say delete. Let's say I want to delete toilet paper, right? Then I would say bag TP. Okay, let's console it, console log bag to see what happened. So I should see cream added, right? I can see the cream added. The eggs is now 3, right? And pen is, I haven't changed the pen, and the TP is gone. Oh, pen, yeah, pen I haven't updated, so it's original number of pens. So that's all you need to remember in back, because there's no order, right? There's no first, there's no last. So it becomes much easier in the object. The only thing you have to remember, you cannot have duplicate items here in the back. Let's try this out. And also another syntax for using this is simpler. In object, you can also do this. You can do bag dot cream equal to 4, right? They're both valid. You don't have to really use this complex. The only time you want to use this is if I have a space in between, right? If you have a, you know, let's say if I have onion bag or something, if I use something like that, right? Where I have a space in between. And if I want to use something like this, I cannot do this, right? Bag dot onion and then space, right? It doesn't make sense. So in that case, I have to use this format where I can have a space. But anyway, and this would be, let's say 1 or something, right? Let's make it 2, something like that, right? So yeah, you will see a lot of people using this dot format rather than this. Okay, so all right, so I think that's a lot for well, I think one last thing we're gonna do before we look at what kind of, I think we have learned enough that we can do like a small project. So let's look at how to iterate through the object. Remember, we were using for, right? Oh, sorry, for off. So let's see if we can use that. So let's say if I want to print values one by one on here. Remember, in array we were using this for sorry, let well off bag, and then we were simply printing console log. Well, let's say what it does, right? Bag is not a iterable object, right? So because you cannot do this here in the object world, you can use in. It's kind of weird why they have created two different syntax for this, but this is how it would work. So when you do in, it gives you key. So it's a key in bag. So give me all the keys in the bag, right? And the key would be egg is a key, pen is a key, and the value is this, right? So if I get the key, then getting the value is pretty simple. So I'm just gonna first print key, and then value would be bag, and then I'll just pass key into it, right? And that will give me the value. So this is the syntax that I want you to use for iterating object. So as you can see, I can print that. It's pretty simple. Let's try this out. All right, so the objects are pretty simple as we know now, right? Because they are because they don't have order, it's basically you just grab things by key and then you get the value, right? So that's pretty much, concludes arrays and object. I was able to finish it within 1.5 hours, which is pretty, pretty great. So now let's think about what we can do with it, right? In terms of the practice, right? Also, I want you to think about a project that you want to build. It could be I'm just going to give you a chance to just do pretty much anything. You can build a small game, or you can build some sort of logic, right? That uses arrays and objects and stuff like that, right? It's up to you. It's up to you what you want to build. But for this turn, what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you multiple small projects, so that will keep you busy and also give you a chance to practice on, right? One thing you can do is, for practice, and also if you ever go for an interview, for JavaScript interview, they would ask you some sort of problem solving questions. So they'll give you something like this. Let's say they'll give you numbers equal to 1, 1, 2, 2, 4, 5. Okay, and as you can see, it has a lot of duplicate values. Like 1 is duplicate, 2 is also duplicate, and you also know it's a sorted array. So what we want to find out is, can I remove all the duplicate value? Right? So that the resulting array would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Let's have another 2 here. Something like that. Okay. So this could be a very good practice example. Another thing you can do, and this would help you start thinking in the process. You have to find a solution. You learn all the array operations, right? It will start really. You have to really start thinking in terms of iterating the array, because you have to remove something from here and all that stuff, right? What if I have one has okay, something like this. I want to find the maximum value from this array, which would be, in this case, will be what? 333, right? So let's discuss one. How would you find a maximum value? Anyone? Let's just think through, because anytime you do the coding problem, you have to plan. You have to say, okay, how am I going to do this? And I can give you a couple of these in homework. So let's try to solve this together. If I'm going to find the maximum value, how would I approach this problem? Anyone?
Is it a math max?
Yeah, you can do that. You can, yeah. So you can easily do that. But what I want you to do is not use any kind of a pre-built function. Okay. I want you to go through an array and then loop through it and then find some mechanism so then you can find it yourself rather than using just a math function. And which is completely valid. What you suggested is completely valid. It's a one-line solution. You can easily find it, right? Even there is a solution for this, like a one-line solution. But I don't want you to find a one-line solution. I want you to use your logical skill to start thinking in that terms. How would you do that? Because when you build a project, right, you have to do all of this. It's not going to be simple. Let's start with something called find. Again, let's say if you have a, so I'm gonna take you through a process. Okay. Find, here you find true. So what am I returning? Result would be the index. Find index of 2, basically. Right? So the result would be what? 0, 1, and 2, right? So 2 has the index 2. How do we approach the problem? It's a simple one. Let's solve it together, and then these two can be homework. How do we find 2 in here without using index of function, by the way, which otherwise it becomes very easy, right? Okay. Think of this way. You're blindfolded. Let's just look at it this way. You're blindfolded, and then and then there's a queue of people, and one of them is your friend, and you can recognize this friend by, if you touch his face, you know that's him, right? So if you touch everybody's face, then you can differentiate between him and the other people, right? So how would you find this friend in this queue? You're blindfolded. Anyone? It's a simple problem when you look at the reality. Right? Come on.
Left to right? Or
Yeah, left to right. So you go person by person, touch his face. This is not my friend. You go to the next person. This is not my friend. As soon as you find your friend, you stop there, right? Because there's no point in moving further, right? Computer thinks the same way. See, I'm looking at this array. My eyes can see all the number at the same time, right? Because it's a small array. So our brain can simply start calculating, oh, it's a second index, right? A computer doesn't see things, all the numbers together. It only has capacity to see one thing at a time. So if I were to do this, I would have to iterate to this array, right? So let's use the loop through method, right? So I'm just going to use a regular for loop where I would do let I equal to 0, right? Because we want to start from 0. And then we want to go all the way to the end where I is less than equal to nums2 dot length minus 1, right? And then it's I equal to I plus 1, right? Which means start from the 0 person, right? Go all the way the length of the array, -1 because it's index start from 0, that's why. And then, you know, go one by one. That's what it means, right? What it gives me is, if I just console log I and then nums to I, this gives me index of each value and then the value itself. Right? So index is 0, value is 1, index is 1, it's 5, and this is 2. This is what we're looking for, right? So this is how computer does. Computer will just evaluate things one by one, right? Now I know that I'm just looking for this value. So if I simply say, if this value is equal to 2, that's what I'm looking for, right? Then simply console log, I'm just going to say found I, right? Right? So computer is doing the same thing. Computer is blind, just like law. Computer is blind. It can check one thing at a time. So you have to think of this way whenever you do something, right? So it's gonna go check 1. Is it 2? It's checking. No, it's not 2. It's gonna check 5. Is it 2? No, it's not. It's 2 is 2. Yes. Okay. I already have the index for it, right? Because I'm within this loop. I'm just gonna print it. Right? Similarly, if I say 7, look for 7, then it's going to be 3, right? So this is how you can find things one by one, and this is you're gonna be using this kind of method a lot. Like there are a lot of things when if you want to find some complex stuff, you could use this index of function. But when you want to do combination of things, right, sometimes it will not work. So you have to do something like this. So that's why I want you to think and start thinking in terms of logic. Computer is a blind person or blindfolded, and it will look through one by one, and you can find. Now that you know this, let's solve this problem. How would I remove duplicate? Anybody? Imagine you are blindfolded, right? Remove duplicate is nothing but let's say if you have a guy with a hat, and if you see another guy with a hat, you have to just remove it, the second one. If you see a guy with a long hair, if you see another guy with a long hair, you remove it, something like that, right? So how would you achieve that? It's the same mechanism. Think of it the same way.
You would iterate through the same way, but if I is equal to I, then insert some logic there.
Okay, so let's just go to the physical scenario, right? So let's say if I go through the queue, right? I'm looking for I encounter a person with hat. The first person is with hat, right? And then the next guy I encounter, he's also wearing hat, right? Which means I have to remember what I have encountered so far. It could be the next guy or it could be the 5th guy, right? So I would have to remember that I have encountered this guy before. That's the one thing. But if I have a sorted array, and this is a sorted array, which means I know that 1 is coming so if I have two guys with hat, they're gonna be one after another. I cannot find one here, right? If it's a sorted array. So that's the first question you want to ask. Is it a sorted array or is it non-sorted array, right? If it's a sorted array, then you have this situation where you encounter one, then again, if you see one again, so it's easy to remember what was the last thing, right? So what you want to do is you want to have a variable where you want to hold the last thing that you saw. And the next thing you saw is equal to the last thing you saw, then remove this thing, right? And you keep going. And then if you see completely new thing, then you update the last value with the new thing, and then just keep the same logic, right? And this would help you remove the duplicate values. I'll leave it up to you in the homework. Finding the maximum is the same way. Let's make it easier. So, well, actually let's not make it this easier. This should be fine. You can find, it's like you're looking for the tallest person in the queue, right? So you need to encounter what was the tallest person you've seen so far. And then just remember that. And then, so next time you compare a new person encounter, you compare with the last tall person's height. So you have to remember one thing only, right? At a time. So I know this is a little bit complex after you just learned the arrays, but I want you to start thinking in this term. Write some logic, see how you start thinking, how you can create an algorithm. And I'll give you a couple of problems like similar to this. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can have, eggs, which is 5. You have pen, which is 2. And TP, which is 6, right? Find the TP, number of TP. Right? The result would be obviously would be 6, right? Another thing you can do is in the same bag is how many total items do you have? Find the total items in the bag. What would be the total item in the bag here, in this bag? How many items do we have in the bag? If you just manually look at it.
Is there 5 eggs?
Yes.
Oh.
So 5 eggs, 2 pen, and 6. So it's 13, right? It's 13 items in the bag. Right? So you have to iterate through it and then add all of them together. Okay. So these, I'll post this homework in the channel. And then next thing we'll talk about is a project. So there are multiple options available. I would start with a simple project. A simple project would be, let's discuss, let me first post this. Even this, I I would want you to do. So I'm just gonna just redo it. I'm just gonna post this homework for now. And I'll post in the Canvas as well.
Can you post the Discord invite? I think I was in the wrong semester or something.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me post it. I'll put it in the chat. Make sure you join right away, because if you, I think it expires in a week. But anyway, okay. So in terms of project, I have a multiple options. You can build a simple game. Right now, we're just going to do in JavaScript, right? The game would be, so we're going to build a game, pick a game, right? Pick a simple JavaScript game or application, right? That you can use arrays, objects, and other stuff, right? One would be pick. Usually, I this is my favorite one. Is pick or guess a number. Who hasn't heard of this game? Guess a number. So the objective is one person one person selects a number and keeps, say, okay, I'm going to pick something between 1 and 10, right? And another person would then start guessing. And then say, is it 6? No. Is it 5? Is it 2? Okay, yeah, it's 2. And then we judge the guessing skill based on how many attempts were made, right? So pick between, let's say 1 and 100 for now, right? And then how many guesses does it take? Guess a number, right? So the result would be how many guesses takes to guess a number, right? So that's your, if somebody does in 5 versus 6, 5 wins, right? Less the better. So how do we approach this problem? So what do we have? So we would have a way to enter the number, right? So you know what? Somebody must have built this game. Let's look at it. CodePen. And you don't have to build a UI right now. Just do it in the define that as a variable. Remember, your code is, your JavaScript is blind. So if you define in a variable, it doesn't see it, right? It has to come up with the number by using a get algorithm. So if I say guess a number, somebody must have built something. All right, so this guy has built something. Again, I would highly recommend not using somebody else's code. Build your own if you want to learn. So let's say I want to guess something between 1 and 10. Okay. So I'm going to say 5. Oops. It looks like it's not working. Whatever this guy has built, it's failing. We're going to move to the second one. So this guy. 'Guy. 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 ' What the heck? Let's change the behavior. Run it. Okay. He's using this way. Okay, but that's fine. So he's asking us, hey, can you think of a random number between 1 and 6? Then I get say 3. Okay. Sorry, the number was 2. It's only one guess, kind of weird. Okay. But the objective is to you keep going until you find the right number, right? So this is also a bad one. Let's say this one. Between 1 and 10, I'm gonna do 5 and enter. What the heck? I think these guys, it's really bad. Usually, you know, CodePen provides some usually quality stuff. I don't know. We'll find something quickly. This looks promising. Let's say guess 5. How do we enter, I guess? Please guess the number. I did. Now what? Okay, then you enter. Oh, I win, right? So it was 6. Somehow it's okay, taking too long. This time I'm just gonna say 5 and enter. What the heck? I'm always winning. Why is that? Maybe it's not working. Okay, maybe I won twice because it was. So it says your guess is smaller than the number I'm thinking. You have 4 attempts left, right? So I'm gonna now go 5. Okay. All right. So it's between 1 and 5. So I'm just gonna do 4. 3. And I think it's 2, obviously, right? Because that's the only number left between. So 2 is the right guess, right? Oh, what the heck? So it says, oh, smaller than. Oh, okay. It was supposed to be 0 then. No, it was between 1 and 9. How can it be smaller than? Okay, anyway, so this is how the game works. That's a one game. Guess the number, right? I'm just gonna put this in the link so you can play around. So this core. I'll create another section called project, and that's where I'll put it. I don't want to put it in homework. Okay, so that's the one game. Another game is rock, paper, scissors, right? I'm assuming everybody knows this game, rock, paper, scissors. So basically you play versus computer, user versus computer, right? Again, you don't have to build this game tomorrow, but just think about how you're gonna build this game. Propose an idea, right? So simple JavaScript game. We can look at in the beginning of the next class, and then you know, from next class we can use the 6 or 7 times to if you have any trouble solving this issue, we can look at it right after the class. So that and I think there's another game. I think Dale built it last time. Roll a dice. Right, simple roller dice where every time you roll, or you can have a 2 dice, just simple roll a dice. That gives you some number, some random number. Okay. Yeah, and I think this is pretty simple. This is probably less complex, and then this a little bit more complex, and how you approach this, right? Otherwise, it's, you know, if you guess a number and if it matches, you say yes. And you have to keep track of how many tries you have had. Okay. So just think about it, what you wanna do. For the first project, you can even have a partner, right? So, you know, work with a partner, because for those who are doing JavaScript for the first time, it will be nice to have a partner, so you know you can help each other out. Okay. Any question on this one? And you can come up with your own game, right? This it doesn't have to be these. Make sure you don't pick anything too complex. For those who are first timer. For those who have taken this class before, I would say, you know, you can go off and do whatever you want, right? But for this project, stick to the pure JavaScript. Don't use React or anything, for those who already know. Any question? And I'll create as I said, I'll create an area in the Discord and then put it there. So, and also update it in the canvas too. All right. And if you're difficult picking one, let me know and I can help you with. You know, I can help you with understanding the requirement, and then planning for how you're going to approach it. Because one game, you can take it to a different level, right? So how complex you want to make, what are the features you want to have? It can be, you know, it can be it's up to you, right? So, but always start with a simple one and then say, okay, I achieved that, I'm going to add another feature, and you add it, and then that's how we do it. Make sense? All right. So yeah, next time we'll just look at the, you know, these games to see, you know, and make sure that you pick one. So I can put a note on it that, okay, you picked one, and obviously you can change it. You know, it's not like written in stone, right? So if you pick one and you don't like something, you'll change it. But I'll make a note of it. If you want to pick a partner, you let me know, so we know who's working with who. And you know, you'll have a few weeks to finish the project, because you're going to be working on another project at the end of the semester, which will be a little bit complex. And I may give you one more in the middle once we finish all the JavaScript stuff. Okay. And it should not take more than, I would say, you know, 3 to 4 hours maximum, the whole project. All right. So yeah, we are coming to the end of, you know, it's almost 6. So is there any last question before we stop? Okay. All right. It looks like everybody understood what I was saying, or nobody understood and it's nobody saying anything. So cool. All right. So I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Yes, you.
Thank you very much.
All right.